the unboxing of the King Crimson THRAK Box. This is the last of the big box sets I'll be unboxing because I do not own Sailor's Tale or Heaven and Earth. More details on that later. So on the front we just have the original THRAK front cover. This side we only have printing on this side of the spine, which says THRAK Box, King Crimson Live in Studio Recordings 1994 to 1997. On the top and bottom we have the little electric cockroach logo with 40th anniversary series printed. On the back we have our list of contents. This time we have 12 CDs, 2 DVDs, and 2 Blu-rays. On the inside we have, again, that electric cockroach, I guess as the book says it is called. Here we have our press kit with some backstage passes printed on the front. And there's quite a bit of stuff in this one. So we have this press photo from one of the official publicity shoots, a list of dates, a press essay with a little brief overview of the history of the band as well as the album. We've got postcards, one of each member. There's Robert, Bill, Adrian, Tony, Pat, and Trey. And then we've got some different concert tickets for shows that are all included in this set. We've got the Royal Albert Hall. We've got the Warfield Theater. We've got the Long Acre Theater and the Teatro Metropolitan in Mexico City. We've got a set list, another set list, and 2 posters. We've got one for the album with the album artwork on it, and then we've got one for the THRAK Attack tour artwork on it. So that's all of the promotional materials that are in here. And then we've got this, which is a pamphlet for, again, this is the Mexico City show. So all in Spanish, some of which I was able to read. I understand rudimentary Spanish. So, short little program. We've got this insert with a tape box cover on the front. And then pictures of Trey and Pat with their computers on top of the Mellotrons, which were unused during the sessions. We've got the album cover insert, so this is a replica of what the Gatefold THRAK vinyl album looks like, with the one exception that there's no track list on the back, just the members of the band. And then the artwork from the original album reproduced inside with lyrics and credits. We've got the book, complete track listing, intro by Fripp, essay by Sid Smith, lots and lots of photos in here, maybe more photos than any of the other boxes, honestly. This page is interesting because it has some of the promotional CDs that were released prior to the album, which indicates where some of the mixes and edits from Disc 6 come from on this set. Tour dates, more promotional stuff, Tale of the Tapes, Blu-ray information page, credits. And I particularly like what was done with the CD wallets this time around. So instead of having pictures of the band members on them, these all have the original artwork reproduced from the fold-out booklet that was included with the original CD. So the 6 original pictures. This first set we've got Jurassic THRAK, Maximum Vroom, and THRAK Original Mix. All of the CDs and Blu-rays have just tape box covers on them, and then a different promotional picture of the band on the back side. We have Attack a THRAK, THRAK the 2015 mix, Bite Size THRAK. I really get a kick out of these titles. I think they're funny. Kensington THRAK and the first disc of New York THRAK for the car. And then the light bulb, we have New York THRAK, the second disc, and Aztec THRAK, which is Mexico City. And then in this first smaller one, we have the DVDs, so that's the cowboy picture. And then in the center, there's just the band members, since there's no third disc there. Same with the helmet, so we have the Blu-rays in this last set. And that's the box set. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm Brandon Ware. You're watching Angel 65, my channel for all things music related, music posts, and music review. We are now on chapter 9 of my King Crimson deep dive, where I review the THRAK Box. So, we'll start with the original studio album, which, if you've watched any of the previous chapters in this deep dive, you've heard me mention several times that THRAK is my favorite King Crimson studio album. The Double Trio is not necessarily my favorite lineup overall, but I love the THRAK album. It is just a perfect album, in my opinion. So, I'll quickly go through it track by track. So we open with Vroom and Coda Marine 475. Just an incredible opening track. Definitely bears resemblance to Red with the what they call the Fairy Fingers section and Tony Levin doing a little bass melody over that. It's kind of reminiscent of the breakdown in Red where there's a double bass doing a melody over some stabbing chords. I really, really love that opening track, and the mix of the original is just fascinating with the drums split left and right. You can hear the two drum kits playing off of each other, as well as the two guitars just doubling each other and then sometimes playing different parts. Fascinating stuff. Then we get Dinosaur, which is one of my all-time favorite King Crimson songs. I think it's just an incredible song. I love the music, I love the lyrics, I love Adrian's vocal performance on it, just how aggressive he gets in the second chorus. I think it's just an awesome song. It's so cool. It's not quite heavy metal, but as far as, certainly compared to the 80s stuff that came before it, this is really aggressive Crimson music, and I just think it's a great song. I love Dinosaur. Dinosaur is probably in my top 5, as is another one on this album, which we'll get to. Then we get Walking on Air, another phenomenal song. Beautiful melody, beautiful bass line from Tony, and I love what the other members do with what I have to imagine was initially Adrian's song. Just a beautiful song, beautiful melody. I love that he uses the lower part of his register on it, and just a wonderful ballad. Then we get Ba-Boom and THRAK. So Ba-Boom is kind of a drum duet, which is fascinating on the album and really, really takes off live, as does THRAK, the title track. So opens with some riffing, and then there's an improv section in the middle, which on the album is kept relatively short. They definitely embellish it a lot more live, but I love the way the 6 members play off of each other during that improv, and the intro of the piece is great with the 2 drummers playing 2 different time signatures. One's doing 5, the other's doing 7, and then they meet up in the middle before they switch to the next section. It's fascinating stuff. I enjoy it so much. So that's tracks 5 and 6. Then we get Inner Garden 1, which is a track with 2 verses that's split into 2 sections. What's interesting is on the vinyl version of this, as on the bonus side, there's an inclusion of the complete track with the whole thing performed start to finish, not split halfway in the middle. Why they decided to split it for the album, I'm not entirely sure. I think maybe just to improve the flow of the album, which for me really works. I love the flow of this album. I love how you get completed, more melodic songs interspersed with a lot of the more aggressive improv and instrumental moments. I think the flow of the album is one of its strengths. So after the short little Inner Garden piece, which again, just a phenomenal piece, very, very dark. I love what the 2 guitars are doing and Adrian's vocals on it. I think his vocals on this are better than anything before or after. I think these are some of his strongest vocal performances. We get People, which is more of a funk kind of thing. Kind of silly lyrics, but really cool, and I love the ending section of it where it just kind of swirls on and on as it starts to fade out. I think that's really cool. It almost reminds me of She's So Heavy, the Beatles on Abbey Road, just the way it kind of swirls and repeats and gets a little bit more aggressive and noisy as it fades out. Love that. Then we get Radio 1, which is just a short little synthy soundscape leading into One Time, which is my other favorite track on the album. Again, top 5 for sure. Beautiful, beautiful song. I absolutely love One Time. I love the groove of it. I love the drum pattern. They're very simple, but the way it interacts with the simplicity of the guitar. And Adrian's vocal performance is, I think, his absolute best that he's ever delivered, particularly on the chorus or the B section of the song, where he moves back and forth between his falsetto and his full voice as he goes through each line. It's just wonderful. It actually gives me goosebumps listening to it. I think that is just an incredible song. I would, again, imagine that Adrian probably brought that in and then they crimsonized it and made it more of a band piece, but it's just an incredible song. If you've not heard One Time, then you really need to hear that. That is just a beautiful, beautiful song. That's definitely in my top 5. My top 5 Crimson tracks are probably Larks 2, Fracture, Epitaph, One Time, and Dinosaur. Those are probably my 5 favorite King Crimson tracks from throughout their entire career. So 2 of them are on this album, and I think they are both just stunning tracks. Moving forward, again, you get another Radio 2, more of a synthy soundscape, which leads into the second half of Inner Garden. And then the home stretch of the album is also just, it really brings it to a roaring close. You get Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream, which is kind of a precursor to some of the stuff that comes on the double duo lineups, particularly Happy With What You Have to Be Happy With and The World's My Oyster Soup Kitchen Floor Wax Museum. Just Adrian really having fun with wordplay and less of a poetic structure and more of just a word vomit kind of thing. Not that it sounds like there's no thought put into it, but just that it's very spur of the moment kind of thing, even though it does have a structure. Love the bass line in it. Love the funky groove of it. And of course in the middle sections, again, like Thrak, you have the 2 drummers doing completely different things. One's in 4/4, the other's in like 12/8 double time. The way they coalesce on top of each other, with Robert doing his chordal guitar solo, which really harks back to Sailor's Tale, even, just with a bunch of chords, not necessarily a melody, more of a chord melody, just aggressive strumming. Love it. And then we get the instrumental ending, which is Vroom Vroom and Vroom Vroom Coda, so sort of a similar melodic structure to the opening tracks, Vroom and Coda, but even more aggressive and with a different kind of melodic thing in the middle. It's just great. I love that you get a big pause after Vroom Vroom, and then the coda comes in and just brings the thing to a roaring climax before it fades out. You hear a little bit of the cocktail melody on Mellotron, and then you hear Pat Mastelotto say, "Yeah," and that's the end of the album. And yeah, indeed. Wonderful album. It's hard to explain, besides going through the individual songs, why I like it so much. I think, again, just the flow of it, the perfection of the songs that are included, the way that the band improvises over it and does different things and really makes use of the double trio. It doesn't sound like there's just 2 of every instrument, guitar, bass, and drums, for the sake of it. They really have the 2 sets of musicians doing different things at different times. And then when they play in unison, it just adds more power to it. It's really a perfect album, in my opinion. I love the industrial kind of elements to it, the improvisational aspects to it. And again, those songs, particularly Dinosaur and One Time, just 2 of King Crimson's best songs that are actual, like, composed pieces, strophic form, if you like. They're not necessarily these big epic things like Fracture and more of what you got in the 70s. I love a lot of what they did in the 80s too. They had some really great songs in the 80s, like Mate Kudasai and 3 of a Perfect Pair. Those are great songs, pop songs even, but just Dinosaur and One Time are 2 of, I think, the best tracks that they've ever done. I adore those tracks, start to finish. Excellent album. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful record. And if you've not heard Thrak, the original album, you must check it out and really sit down and take the 55 minutes to listen to it start to finish, because it really does feel like an event, this album, the way it flows. I think it's great. Now onto the material in the box set. So I will say I really enjoyed this box set, probably more than the 3 preceding it, because there's a sense of curation here. In the Tale of the Tapes, David Singleton, it says they recorded everything on digital audio tape, so they could have included every single show that the band played if they really wanted to, but I like that they did more of picking the best moments and giving you a sense of a journey of this band and just picking some of the highlights from their brief, like 3-year career, some of the shows they played. So we'll go disc by disc here. We'll start at the beginning with Jurassic Thrak, which is like the Keep That One Nick thing and the Let's Make a Hit waxing on the 69 and Lark's Tongues box set. It's like an hour in the studio. You just get to hear them do different takes of each piece and hear some of the studio chatter, which is cool. I think that's a neat way to open the box. Just have that be the first disc showing sort of the behind the scenes, but again, not going into everything, which the Lark's 50th and the 69 box set do. They give you the complete run of sessions. I found those interesting, but I will admit I will never ever listen to them again, whereas I would go back to Keep That One Nick, and certainly this Jurassic Thrak I think is a little audio documentary. It really works, and it's fascinating to hear some of the commentary between the band members, so I enjoyed that a lot. Then we get Maximum Vroom, which includes the original Vroom EP, and then some bonus tracks which were recorded at the same sessions. I guess it's not everything, so not necessarily as complete as it could be. It doesn't have the entire Vroom Sessions CD, which was released in the King Crimson's Collectors Club. I don't have it, but what's included here is fascinating, and I always really liked the original Vroom EP, so you get alternate versions of Vroom, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream, and One Time. They're different to what was on the final album, and then you also get Cage, which was not on the Thrak album, just a really short piece with bizarre lyrics and time signatures, kind of a spoken word type thing with a very bizarre chorus, but it's a cute, fun little song. I enjoy that a lot. So the Vroom EP was great. I had it on CD, but I sold it once I got this since it's included here. I will say one thing I wish was here is the original Vroom EP artwork, which they even talk about in the book, so the fact that they didn't reproduce any of the Vroom artwork in big form here is just a slight disappointment, but not it doesn't put me off buying it for anything. Then we get the Thrak original mix, which is just, it's perfect. The original mix, I always loved it. It's definitely got a harsh, brash sound to it, and I think that's how it's supposed to sound. I mean, the sound quality of the album definitely fits its title, and I always liked it. Initially, I was hesitant to sell my original CD copy of Thrak with the fold-out booklet, but once I saw that on the CD wallets in here, they reproduced each of the 6 individual photographs, I was like, oh, okay, so all the artwork is reproduced here. You're not missing out on anything, which I really like. We get Attack-a-Thrak, which is a sequel to Thrak Attack, which we'll talk more about when we get to that disc. So it's a collection of improvs from different shows played in the middle of the Thrak piece. And comparing this to Thrak Attack, I certainly like it a lot more. It's got a lot more structure to it. I like how they keep recapitulating the Thrak theme as they go into each of the individual segments. And I also like that it's shorter. 49 minutes is still kind of long, but it's not that hard of a listen. They certainly get very atonal and avant-garde in places, but I think as a little album unto itself, it works really well as sort of an ambient improv piece. I enjoy that a lot. Then we get the Thrak 2015 mix. Now, I definitely liked the Steven Wilson mixes of the first 7 studio albums. I thought he brought some more clarity to it because there was more of a limitation with what they could do on those original mixes given that they were done on analog tape. So I thought his remixes of those were really useful, and just they didn't change it too much, but they added some elements to it and just gave it a clearer, overall, better EQ'd sound. The remixes of the 3 80s albums, as I said, I thought were very unnecessary, particularly with Discipline. I just thought that there was no need to remix those albums. The new mixes really didn't change that much, and I didn't think they added anything to it. So in the case of the 80s albums, I certainly prefer the original mixes. I thought the additional remixes were kind of a cash grab and just not that useful. The 5.1 mixes of them were great, but I didn't see the point for the stereo remixes. However, this, the Thrak 2015 mix, which is done by Jacko Jaksic, of course, a member of the final King Crimson lineup, is great. This is an actually radically different way to hear the album. So they've really gone aggressive with the stereo panning, so to the point where there really does sound like two separate trios and two different speakers. As I was listening to it, I was even using the audio control on my receiver to switch between the left and right channels, just because it's startling how different they are and how far panned everything is. The only time I think that hinders the album is on Walking on Air, where you have Tony's bass panned hard, it's either right or left, just having a really loud bass part in one speaker. That was a little off-putting, but the rest of it, I think, adds a sense of really spacing out the two trios and hearing what the two things are doing, and that's particularly helpful on tracks like Ba-Boom and Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream. You can really differentiate the parts more than you could on the original stereo mix. I will say the original stereo mix is probably a more pleasurable experience overall, just because it sounds more cohesive, but this mix is really an open up way to hear the album, and I enjoyed it. So I am happy that there's an alternate mix of Thrak. It really could have been done that way, but I prefer the original stereo mix, but this is a genuinely new way to hear the album, so definitely worth including. Of course, that's included on the Thrak DVD CD 40th anniversary set, which I, again, discarded, sold once I had this. And then we get Disc 6, Bite-Sized Thrak, which is a collection of edits and single mixes and stuff that were done for promotional CDs. Not particularly necessary, but it's interesting to hear some of this stuff. Just edits, the way the tracks were done commercially. So it's as a compilation, it kind of works, and I dig it. You get some additional live stuff in there as well. And then it has bonus tracks from the 97 rehearsals, again, released as a King Crimson Collectors Club CD, which I don't own. But it's fascinating to hear some of that. That's when the band kind of imploded and just couldn't work together anymore. But to hear what they were doing in 97, which maybe could have led to a second album but never did, is interesting. And when I was talking about the sense of curation, this is what I meant. I really like what was done with the live shows. So we get Disc 7 and 8 is Kensington Thrak, so that is live at the Royal Albert Hall. Great show, great to have a complete unaltered set, so this is actually true to what was performed on the night. Great to have a new live album in here, which there's a 5.1 mix of on the Blu-ray. And then we get 9 and 10, which is New York Thrak, so the Longacre Theater, and 11 and 12, which is Aztec Thrak in Mexico City. So these are full set lists from multiple nights, compiled from the original shows that were used to make the Vroom Vroom album, which is an album I really loved. I did end up selling it after I got this, since you have a complete set list from each of the two periods. It's not one set list from one night, it's a collection of tracks, so they're really long shows, or live albums if you like, since they include different tracks that were performed on the different nights. But to have the Vroom Vroom album expanded from 2 CDs to 4, and hear 2 really great periods in the band's live history is great. Again, the same thing with the Vroom EP. I'm a little bummed that they didn't reproduce the Vroom Vroom artwork in full size as part of the booklet. That would have been nice, because I always really liked the Vroom Vroom artwork. The paintings by P.J. Crook, I thought the artwork was really cool, so it's sad that that's not there, but I like that they picked the 2 shows that were already really the definitive shows from the double trio lineup and just expanded each of them to be a complete set list, so certainly worth having. Between the 2 of them, I definitely like Aztec Thrak more, but they're both great shows. Then we get DVD-A, which is just the surround mix, original mix, and new stereo mix of Thrak, same as what was released on the 40th anniversary set, no new tracks. The DVD has everything that's on Blu-ray too, or it has some of the stuff that's on Blu-ray too. So again, I don't see the point of the DVDs. I can't for the life of me imagine why they would include those, especially given that everything that's on the Blu-rays is not on the DVDs. So 2 kind of useless discs, honestly, but that's fine. It doesn't make the price of the box go up significantly, so I wasn't upset that they were there. It says there's 16 discs when really there's 14 of unique content. The Blu-rays, the 2 Blu-rays are really some of the buying points of this set. The 6 live CDs and the Blu-rays are really what you want this set for. So you get the 5.1 mix of Thrak, again by Jacko Jaksic, which is just outstanding. I think I said way back in the beginning of this series that The two albums that really benefit most from 5.1 in the King Crimson catalog are Lark's Tongues and Aspic and Thrak. And I think the reason is because they both have two drummers on them. So to have the drummers really spaced out, in this case I think you get Pat in front and Bill behind you, is just great. And then to hear more space in the mix to really hear the different parts as they coalesce. Absolutely fantastic 5.1 mix. If you were going to get just one of the 40th anniversary CD DVD sets, the one that I think you should get is Thrak, because this album really benefits from the 5.1 mix. You get Attack of Thrak in 5.1, which is really cool. Not essential. The stereo version of it is fine, but nice to have 5.1. And then you get Kensington Thrak in 5.1, which the different surround mixes of the live content are done in different ways, and I like Kensington Thrak because it sort of follows the same format as the album. Again, this is mixed by Jacko Jaksic, who did a great job on all three of the mixes he did for this, where the drums are put in front and behind you. So the video material they did differently. They did it more of big stereo with stuff left and right instead of in front or behind. David Singleton said in the tail of the tapes, because it can be disconcerting to hear things behind you that you're seeing in front of you, which makes sense. So they did them differently for the video portions as opposed to just the live audio portions. On the Blu-ray you also get original mix, stereo mix of Thrak. You get Attack of Thrak, stereo mix, Kensington Thrak stereo mix, so all just repeats of the CDs, but nice to have it all in one place. I didn't listen to it on Blu-ray, I just did with the CDs so I could go in order. What really I enjoy, though, is that you get Thrak Attack, the original improv album, and Ba-Boom, the live bootleg that was done at the shows in Buenos Aires before they recorded the album. Really, really enjoyed that you get both of those things there. I did have both of those original CDs, and I discarded them, sold them once I got this, since they're both included on the Blu-ray, and neither of them is one that I go back to often, but for completion's sake, it's nice to have them both in here. I will say, Ba-Boom, I think, is just a soundboard recording. It's not like properly mixed, so the sound quality of it is not great. It's very compressed and has some strange bass frequencies in it, but to have that show in there is nice for completion's sake. And then we get disc 16, which is probably the most interesting disc in the set, which is the Warfield Theater. So that's a single camera show mixed in stereo in 5.1. The Nakano Sun Plaza, which was from the original Vroom, Deja Vroom DVD, which I never owned. I had heard the concert because I had the collectible King Crimson, I think it was volume 5. Sold it once I got this, because what's interesting about this is you get a video on or off option on the Blu-ray. So I listened to the stereo mix, which I think was the same as those two CDs, without the video, and then you get the video as well. One thing that's unfortunate, and might make me decide to buy the Deja Vroom DVD, though I haven't yet, is I guess on the original DVD, David Singleton said they were able to do a variable center channel, so that if you switched angles, depending on what part of the show you were looking at, it would change the sound you were hearing in the center channel, and that was, for whatever reason, not reproducible on the Blu-ray. But the standard 5.1 mix is great, and I loved the video portion of it. Between the two shows, I actually like the Warfield Theater more, even though it's single camera, just because it seemed more accurate to what had been there. And the Nakano Sun Plaza show has some very strange glowing color effects. I believe this was done on tape, not on film. I'm sure it was done on tape, not on film. So the color temperature of some of the shots looks very bizarre to me, but still great to see. It was actually great to go back to this, because I hadn't watched either of those since I first bought this box set like 3 years ago. And there are certainly moments where, in the book, Jacko says that he heard parts on the original recording and assumed it was either Robert or Adrian or Tony, and it was actually Trey. So to see the live footage and actually see some of the stuff Trey is doing, that was surprising to me too, when you actually see what he's doing physically and connect that to what you're hearing. It's like, oh, I did not realize that was the touch guitar. I didn't know that part was Trey doing that. So you really get a sense of what he brought to the band. It's not that you can't hear it in the original mix, it's just that there's so much happening, it's hard to know who's doing what sometimes. So to actually physically connect the performance to what the musicians are doing was very interesting. So that's certainly worth your time, seeing the live footage for that reason, just so you can see more of what the musicians are doing and how that connects to the actual sound you're hearing. Then you get Tony's Road Movies, which has some, I think, rehearsal tapes as its soundtrack. Not a buying point, but interesting. Just these home video things of the band in the dressing room. The opening scene is them all at an arcade doing a race on some of those like car arcade machines. Interesting. Not essential. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that kind of behind the scenes type stuff, but it's cool that it's on there. What's really interesting, and I really enjoyed actually, and thought would be useless, but was cool, is the THRAK electronic press kit. So to hear some of the interviews with the musicians, just hear them discuss the music they're doing and what's happening, and just their thoughts on the album was actually really fascinating. I enjoyed that a lot. The electronic press kit was cool. I particularly liked hearing what Fripp had to say about some of it, including his definitions of the word thrack. Cool stuff. Liked it a lot. And then all the extra stuff, the book and the press kit or whatever. So I really enjoyed this box set. Again, for that sense of curation, you get a really good overview of the highlights of the period, not necessarily everything. I know I celebrated the Starless box set because it includes basically everything that it could include and is as complete as it can be. But I think in that case it's more necessary because there's more of a reason to hear the shows from night to night because so much of the set is improvised and the improvs are not really structured. Here, all of the improvs are part of THRAK, so I don't need to hear 85 different versions of the THRAK improv. I think you get a good collection of them on Attack of THRAK and THRAK Attack, so there's no point including full shows because they are more structured and consistent from night to night. I think the 3 shows that they picked for CDs were the right ones to include, and I enjoy that. This is one reason why I highly would recommend this one, and not necessarily, I'll talk more about this in the next chapter, but one reason I was put off of the double duo box set, Heaven and Earth, is because I guess it includes the entire set of projects, which is not particularly interesting to me. Again, I'll say more later in the next chapter once I finish going through what I do own by the double duo, but this is great. I think you get the best of this period all represented in this box, and it was not prohibitively expensive. I think it might be now. I got this on a sale when they had some stock left over and they sold them off, and so I think I paid maybe $110, $115 for this, which I consider a very fair price given the amount of content in it. If you can't find it for more than that or less than that, then I think the releases you should get from this period are probably the Deja Room DVD, which I don't have but I might get, the CD DVD of THRAK, and maybe the THRAK Attack album. I'm not a big fan of THRAK Attack. I think the sequel included here, Attack of THRAK, is much better. These titles are getting kind of stupid and hard to say, but you know, I like that there's a sense of humor with it. And then the Vroom Vroom album, of course. If you can't get this to have complete sets from those sets of shows in New York and in Mexico, then the Vroom Vroom album is a good summary. So those are the releases I would get if you can't get this, but I would highly recommend this. This is probably my second favorite box set in the series after Starless, and for a contrasting reason, which is this is more limited in its scope but includes the best moments, I think, whereas Starless, there's more of a reason to include everything that was available from that period, and the sound quality of those tapes was great. So the 2 box sets of the series, of the 6 that I own, the 2 I recommend most of all are Starless and this one, which I know they're both out of print and hard to find. If you're thinking this one or Starless, I would recommend Starless over this one. That's the best one in the series by far, but this is a close second, and it was fun to go through it because, as I said, THRAK is my favorite King Crimson album. So to hear some of the live stuff, some of the improv stuff, as well as see the video footage is great. Alright, that is all for the big box sets. I don't own Heaven and Earth, and we're way past it, but I didn't own Sailor's Tale. I do want to take a moment in this video, even though it's not relevant to this period of the band at all, to say rest in peace, Peter Sinfield. He passed away this week. He was certainly an important part of the first lineup. I know I definitely said some derogatory things about his lyrics on Lizard and Islands, but he was an important part of that first album, an important part of King Crimson's history, an important part of ELP's history. His contributions to lyrics on Brain Salad Surgery are also worth celebrating. So rest in peace, Peter Sinfield. You had a big impact on the progressive rock world and just the rock world at large. Thank you for your contributions, sir. That's all for this video. I'll be back with the double duo hopefully soon and talk about the releases I do own for that period. and what I think about it overall. And then we're done with all of the King Crimson studio albums, and the last chapter, chapter 11, is going to be the final lineup. So all of the live releases from the 2013 to 2021 band, the final version of King Crimson, as well as the documentary. Let me know in your comments what you think of the THRAK album. Do you like it as much as I do? Do you like the two tracks that I like most, Dinosaur and One Time, which I think are just phenomenal, outstanding songs? And if you have this, what do you think? If you don't have it, are you interested in getting it? Do you have any of the other releases from the period? Vroom Vroom, the Deja Vroom DVD. Let me know what you think about those as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in about a week. Bye-bye.